Have you ever wondered if God has no gender? Why do we always say he and not she? Or why not just say it? I know this is a question that comes up a lot from both religious and non-religious perspectives. Yet, some people think it is outdated, while others believe it carries a deeper meaning. Well, in today's video, we are going to break it all down for you, historically, linguistically, and theologically. And by the end of this video, you are going to have a complete understanding with no confusion left about the true gender of God Almighty. Let's get into it. First things first, many religious traditions are very clear that God has no gender, and he is not male and he is not female at all. In fact, God is beyond human characteristics entirely, and many scriptures describe God as being beyond human forms and limitations. That means he is not a man and not a woman, and definitely not something we can actually compare to anything in creation that he actually created. So if God is beyond gender, then why do we use he at all? Is it a mistake from the religious books, or there is something that we need to understand? Well, let us look at the linguistic reasons as to why God is referred to as he and not a she or it. In many languages, including Arabic, Hebrew, and Greek, you have to use either masculine or feminine pronouns because there is no neutral it like we have in English. And in these languages, when something is not specifically male or female, the default pronoun used is the masculine form, that is he. And this isn't unique to religious texts. Even in English, we used to say things like, if a person wants to succeed, he must work hard. So you can see the he in this statement doesn't mean men only. It's just a grammatical default that goes for every single human being. Now, why is this important? Because when religious scriptures were revealed, the languages they used didn't have a neutral option to referring something that is beyond gender. So instead of saying it, which would make God sound impersonal, the masculine form was chosen because it was the default for power, authority, and universality. But some people argue, why don't we use she rather? Well, that is a fair question, because if languages would need a pronoun, why not use she instead? Well, listen to this. Historically and linguistically, masculine forms in many languages are often used for authority, universality, and neutrality. And so the use of he for God isn't about assigning him a gender, but rather choosing a form that best conveys his majesty and power. In contrast, many languages use feminine pronouns for things that are nurturing or passive, like referring to the earth as mother nature or ships as she. But because God is beyond human qualities, the masculine form was seen as more fitting for describing an all-powerful being that cannot be seen or touched. Then again, if we can't use she, then at least we should use it if God has no gender. But that is not the case, because in English, it is used for objects, lifeless things, or animals. And God is not an object. He is ever loving, he is ever living, he is all knowing, and he is the most beneficent. So saying it would actually strip away the personal connection people have with God Almighty. And just imagine calling upon God in prayer and then you say something like, oh, it, guide me. It doesn't sound right. And because of this, we need a pronoun that reflects power, knowledge, and also majesty. And he does that while still maintaining the fact that God is beyond human gender. Now, brothers and sisters, understand something. This isn't just about one religion, because in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, God is referred to as he in sacred texts. But that doesn't mean that he is a male. In fact, scholars across faith agree that God is beyond human characteristics. For example, in the Bible, God is sometimes described with attributes that are considered maternal or nurturing, but the masculine pronoun remains the same. And in Islamic tradition, God has names that reflect both strength and mercy, showing a balance beyond human gender. Even in Hinduism, where God can be represented in both masculine and feminine forms, the supreme divine is still often referred to in a neutral yet authoritative way. So it is not about making God a male. It is about giving him the absolute description that he deserves. Now let me clear this misconception real quick before we end the video. The use of he doesn't mean God is a male. It is used to appreciate his authority, just like how angels are always referred to as he in many religious texts. But we know angels have no gender. The same applies to God. The pronoun is just a linguistic tool, nothing more, that is actually used for God Almighty. And many traditions have made it crystal clear that God is not a man and not a woman, and indeed not bound by any human limitations. But some people argue that using he reinforces patriarchal views, though it makes God look male dominated. The focus should be on the nature of God, not just the pronoun that is used to describe him. So some might say, why does this even matter? Why do we need to even discuss this? Well, for one, understanding language and theology helps us appreciate how religious teachings are framed. It also helps us and also clears up the confusion, especially in modern discussions about gender and faith. And by knowing that he is a grammatical default and not a literal gender assignment, we avoid misconceptions and have more meaningful conversations about God and spirituality. So then let's put everything together. God has no gender because he is way beyond it. Religious texts actually use he because many languages require a pronoun, and the masculine form is the default for things beyond gender. It wouldn't work because it would make God seem impersonal or lifeless or even inanimate. And the use of he is consistent across many religious traditions, but it doesn't mean that God is a male. Well, this brings us to the end of today's video. And if you want to understand how theology actually shaped the understanding of God, well, check the next video. Until we meet again, shalom.